This is TWiT.
Brown liquor pick of the week.
There you go. Your favorite, right?
Yeah.
And, you always pick these esoteric brands no one's ever heard of. Come on, Richard, what's going on?
Well, I kind of, you called it out last week when I did the Perth 23. Nobody's ever going to have again.
Like, go
right?
on, man.
Yeah, a little cruel. So I swung the other way. Although I have another motivation, and I'll leave it for the end.
Okay.
This week is Chivas Regal, like your $30 blended whiskey, but it's got a great legacy. It's one of the oldest whiskeys out there, really. James and John Chivas are from the early 1800s. They were born in 1810 and 1814, and they were in the luxury good business as relatively young men by the 1830s. So that by the 1850, when they're about 40 years, not even 40 years old, they were the royal grocers to the Duchess of Kent, which you would know as the Queen Mother.
That's like the lyrics to a Christmas song.
Yes. And of course, the point being that once you become got a royal appointment like that, most of the well-to-do in the UK would then buy your products automatically. And so that's how they ended up getting into whiskey, because they had this amazing clientele who wanted a quality whiskey. And in the mid 1800s, whiskey was a very erratic product. The distillation processes weren't that refined. It was hard to get quality. And so blending was the way to go, that you had a blender who would combine whiskeys to get a consistent flavor that folks like. So in 1854, they launched a whiskey called the Royal Glendee, which is their original product. And that continued for another 40, 50 years. The last of the actual Chivas family, Alexander Chivas, passed away in 1893. And by 1895, it was owned by a larger conglomerate of whiskey folks, and no family members remain, but they was always called the Chivas brothers. So, over 100 years of Chivas, even though there were no Chivases anymore. The Chivas Regal, the name is first used for a whiskey that's a 25-year-old blend. So that's a combination of whiskeys where the youngest thing in the bottle was 25 years old, from 1909. Now, that was an expensive whiskey, relatively speaking. It would be costly today as well. But it was a breakthrough whiskey for a lot of folks. This was a high-end whiskey that wasn't a single malt, again, a very consistent product. After Prohibition, we sort of shut down a lot of business for it. They wanted to reduce the cost on whiskey to get it up and running again. And so the Chivas Regal 12 came out in 1939. And that's closer to the modern Chivas we have today, which does not have an age appellation on it, which means it has even younger stuff in it, including some pure grain alcohol, which is normal for a blended whiskey. If you are into doing the tour at the distilleries and so forth, when you go to the Chivas brothers, like that whole place, you're actually going to the Strathisla distillery, which was it's actually one of the oldest distilleries ever made. It was originally known as the Milltown Distillery, built in 1786. So it's one of the very few distilleries from the 1700s that still exists. But it was, and it was originally called the Milltown Distillery. It got named Strathisla for the first time in 1870, but then in 1890 changed it back to Milltown. And then when the Chivas Group bought it in 1950, they renamed it back to Strathisla again. Easily, I've done the tour. It's one of the prettiest distilleries you'll ever see. It has phenomenal gardens. But as a distillery goes, it's small. It's a great place to start if you've never toured distilleries before, because it's just not that complicated. They've only got 2 sets of stills, sort of mid-size, relatively short-necked. They use conventional. They still have the old malting floors, but they don't use them anymore. They use industrial maltings now. And then they barrel in oak and sherry. They use both dunnage and rack warehouses. So all very conventional. And that is not for making Chivas Regal directly. That is made for making Strathisla single malt, which is rarely bottled by them. You'll typically see Strathisla bottlings by the third parties. The folks like Gordon MacPhail is where you'll find a Strathisla. And I've had the Strathisla 12, lovely space side, straightforward whiskey. But this is a blend that we're talking about, the Chivas Regal. And if you taste it, you'll notice that it comes from Spain. It's fairly Spey-ish. It has a little smoke in it, a little peat in it, which is not normal for the Spey. And that's an effect of the blend. Now, they don't publish the different places that they buy whiskey from. They do say that Strathisla is their primary component to making Chivas Regal, along with a certain amount of grain alcohol that comes from the lowlands. As again, normal, usually about 50% for a blended whiskey. That's how you get it down to $30. But the other distilleries that come up routinely are Strathclyde and Longmorn. And Longmorn does use peat in their whiskey. So there's a hint there that the flavor you get that makes Chivas Regal itself is that Longmorn added in with the Strathisla. It became a part of the multinational industry of modern Scotch in 2001 when it was bought by Pernod Ricard. And it has been since then. So it's been 20 plus years, and they've modernized their line, and they make a bunch of older variants and so forth. You can spend as much on Chivas Regal as you wish. Although I would argue that the classic at 40% alcohol for $30 is an excellent representation of the product. It was also Hunter S. Thompson's preferred breakfast meal.
Even better.
Yikes.
Understanding that Hunter S. Thompson typically had breakfast at 3 o'clock in the afternoon,
Sure.
and he'd have a shot of it. Then he'd take an hour or so. We don't really talk about what he did for that hour. And then he'd have several more. And that's how he'd get his day started. And just to throw the extra layer on here, I brought up Chivas Regal today because it was my father's favorite whiskey. And he passed away a few weeks ago, and we had his memorial yesterday. And so I thought I'd call it out for him that I know this was your favorite, Pops, and I'm sad you're gone.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is something that everybody should go and pick up. I guess if you
you've seen it in the store. The thing is, like, everyone recognizes this, right? It does give off a little bit of a.
I don't like their website
vibe.
because they've kind of gotten pulled into. It's in a lot of rap music. It shows up in all kinds of movies and things. Right. And so they're kind
like
of
it's Courvoisier or whatever.
Yeah. And I would say that it's when I talk about basic blended whiskeys, you're typically talking about Famous Grouse, right? I'd rather drink that any day of the week.
Sure.
Chivas is, I would argue, is a nicer whiskey than that as a blend. Truly, none of them are expensive.
And in that statement, Richard, you have shown us that you are not pretentious.
You know what? I can
really
be if you'd like me to be.
No. You know more about this than anybody, but you can still appreciate.
Yeah,
it's like someone being a food snob, but they're like, I like Taco Bell.
Yeah.
Once in a while.
That.
Yeah. There's stuff on the shelf I'm not going to pick up, but if Chivas is what's on the shelf, let's drink it.
Sure.
Right? And I'm not going to feel bad about dropping an ice cube in it. Coke, that's weird. You want Coke, have some Jack, right? But if you're going to drink a blend, Famous Grouse, Chivas Regal, drink them neat, maybe with an ice cube. Nobody's going to be mad at you, and you're going to have a nice drink.
Right. I'm curious about the show. There's a lot of sherry cask whiskey, bourbon these days.
Yeah,
seems to be the trendy.
Well, the sherry industry has also grown, and they have now gotten into techniques for maturing barrels quickly, and it's become a business to make sherry barrels.
Yeah, nice.
They make the sherry barrels to do their initial run through. Like the 3-year-old sherries out of raw wood are not good sherries, but they're good for other things.
Sure.
The barrels are really valuable, so they make the barrels that way as an initial aging. Then they'll move them on from there, and that's provided a lot more barrels for the whiskey makers.
It's good.
It's a funny shtick. Yeah. It is an ecosystem.
Yeah, I actually like sherry cask whiskeys and bourbons. Honestly,
Well, once upon a time, and I think I told this story back when we were doing the whole whiskey story, that the reason they started casking in sherry is because they were buying sherry and it came in barrels, and you got to do something with the barrel anyway.
Yeah, ship it back.
Yeah,
with whiskey in it.
Yeah, it doesn't happen. And so until Spain made it illegal to export sherry in barrels, you have to sell it in bottles, and so then the barrels became scarce, and hence the business around selling barrels grew up.
Right.